Hello everyone, today we're going to take a look at the RadioMaster TX12, a new radio from RadioMaster. And before we get into the specifics about this radio, I think there's something that I've said before in other reviews. It's really difficult for me to help you decide whether this radio is for you or not. For you experienced pilots, you probably already have an affinity, or you've been flying with one radio and now you want to try something completely different, and maybe this is the one that you're looking at. I think these radios are popular for two reasons. One, they're budget friendly at $69, and two, they're small. So therefore, if you pack to go fly, I don't, but if you do go pack to go fly, a smaller radio can maybe save you some space, and maybe that's just what you're looking for. But there are a whole nother aspect of this hobby, which is the human element, which we won't be able to determine through this format. Our hands are all different shapes, our fingers are different sizes, our flexibility or dexterity of our fingers are all different. Just like with goggles, you never know if it's going to fit your face. So there's a lot of things I can't tell you whether they'll work for you or not. It's always best if you have a flying club, whether it's a plane club or a drone club, whatever. See if you can find someone, a friend, a buddy who's got a radio, and you can get your hands on it. Maybe you can even actually borrow it for a day, maybe use it on a computer simulator so you can see how it feels to you. Now, I have a bias towards smaller radios. I started with the Devo 7E. Some of you may remember that one. I put in a multi-module inside of that so I could fly outside of just Spectrum. I also flew the Devo 10, which was a much bigger white one. It's actually still back there if you see it right back there. The multi-protocol module, and that one just died one day, so I haven't used that in a while. And then eventually I got to the point where I was using the X-Lite, but I have been migrating away from FrSky radios. Sometimes I catch some heat for it, but they got rid of D8 mode. So if you update your old radios, you no longer have D8 mode, and a lot of our whoops and small little things, they fly using D8 mode. That's kind of what I do on this channel, so that becomes a problem for me. So going back to my early days and using multi-protocol modules is something that I like to do. Now, the RadioMaster TX12 does have a module bay in back, so you can add a different protocol module if you want to, something like Crossfire. But inside, it's got the CC2500 chip, so you can do a whole host of different protocols. To find out if the protocol you want to fly is in there, go down to the video description, hit the link. There should be a full laundry list of different protocols that are available underneath that. Most of the major ones are covered. So since I've been moving away from the X-Lite, which is a radio I have enjoyed many fun flights with, I've tried different radios out, and the last one that I've been landing on is a Tango 2 from TBS. Yes, it does have the multi-protocol module in the back, so I can do non-crossfire stuff with it. So this one is the Pro version, so it has those fancy little bend-over stems. So I got the Pro version because it was available to ship right away from the place that I was looking to purchase from, so that's where I got it. This one I have found that I've grown towards, but initially I didn't. I had troubles. One of the things that I was doing was I was trying to use this for arm and disarm. I was moving my arm and disarm from a switch to kind of this rocker, I would call it, and it just was too much of a reach for my fingers, so I found that I was bouncing rather than getting right down above the ground and then disarm, that's how I land. And I also found I couldn't disarm as quickly, because when I'm flying, if I hit something, I want to disarm pretty fast so I can save from damage of primarily those 4-in-1 ESCs. So I had to move my disarming over to this button over here, arming and disarming. And I found that I can do that efficiently enough, and I can reach it quickly enough to do it efficiently enough. So sometimes we have to make adjustments with radios because we want to do, like in my case, I wanted to move away from the X-Lite into something else. So if you're an X-Lite user, I would look at the Tango 2. Although I have heard that there's possibly a new Tango coming. I'm not certain about that. That was, you know how the rumor mill is in this hobby. I really felt strongly that that stuff needs to be covered before we even talk about the TX12, is that not all radios are going to be for you. This one has some new features, some differences from past radios. Let's get down to the desk and we'll look at those. So this does offer an 18650 tray that you can put your batteries in and plug it in. I'll show you the battery that I've been using this with. It's actually an old Tattoo goggle battery. It's the 300 milliamp or 3000 milliamp, 2S battery. You can see down there we also have our SD card slot, so you can put an SD card. Maybe you want the amber sounds or you want some music to play. Various people use that for all sorts of different purposes. We also get a USB-C cable, and this goes right up here because they have recessed the antenna. So you can put that plug right in there, make sure no debris or anything gets in there. And I think that's a really smart feature, because this is one of the things that a lot of people break on the radios, especially when they put them in their backpack. They don't take the antenna off, or they even do take the antenna off, and we usually have this little SMA connector poking out. It catches on something, you pack it up, zip it up, put it in your car, that gets broken. So that's I think one of the best design changes that they've made, and hopefully it's one that stays around. Also, the antenna does move around, and we have this foldable antenna, which can also be handy for packing. This is plastic, so don't expect this to be metal. We have various switches. One of the things that's different about this is they have momentary switches, or buttons, on these two positions. Everything else is 3-position switches, and then you have your model, system, return, page back, and the last button there is tell, which I have never used, I don't think. Of course, we've got trim buttons. It does feel like these trim buttons can be used to push down as well, and that's pretty standard. Not only do you push left and right, but you can push down on them. If you were to remap them to something else, it's something you could do. And then we have what I call sliders here on the side. It's not something we use in quads, but it is something in other flying vehicles that you might want to use. It doesn't have much of a strong center point, though. There's a little bit there, but not much. It's not going to take much to knock that off its center if you want it in center. Otherwise, it's real smooth. So, again, it wouldn't stick in a particular position. So I don't know what you would use it for, but just know that it won't really stay in any one position if it gets touched. The rollerball, oddly enough, feels a little bit more firm than I've found on some other radios that feature the same metal rollerball. These are not terribly precise, so when you're using these things, you might find that one time you go 2 slots and the next time you go 1 slot, or you might go 3 slots when you thought you went 2. They're a little... It's not necessarily that it's inconsistent. I think it's the human side of things. It's difficult to roll these things really specifically to only go the 1 notch at a time. You would think, as you would feel on your finger, 1 notch would be 1 position, but sometimes it just doesn't work out that way. It could be a little quirk of how these things work, or it could be a quirk of how I work. Also, you can press down on this as well. Up top, we have our trainer port. We have our USB port that does our charging for our batteries, as well as being able to connect us as a human interface device to our computers for SIM use. So we recommend anyone getting started to get a radio and use a SIM. You can do that with this one, although I have not tested that on my machine. Just got a new computer, and that's one thing I haven't gotten to yet. Of course, you do get a quick start guide with it as well. Now, one of the things I wanted to look at was if we go back to the older jumper series of radios. I've got 2 of them here. There are others as well, and you can kind of see how they all have similar form features, especially the latter 2 here. This one has more of a, many of them called it a futaba, but something to note is, you know, the design changes of the buttons have kind of evolved over time. Maybe it's a trend because just purchase habits has dictated these things. But one of the things I always look at these radios, because I am a pincher, if you fly with your thumbs, that's fine. I look out for pinchers because I am a pincher. Is the distance between the stick and the switches. So if you have the switches in the down position, what happens as a pincher when you go to the positions up top? So you can see there, with this position down, I can get in here, and if I really angle my finger, I can get in there. But if I want to go to the top right hand corner, I'm definitely going to trip that switch. So something to be aware of. I mean, you can always, instead of using this switch for anything, look at that, it's even loose. Instead of using this switch for anything, you can move whatever features that you're using this switch for to this switch or to the other side altogether. But these lower 2 switches on this T8SG, those were problematic for me as a pincher because my fingers would hit those. So if those were fly modes or arm, disarm, anything that was critical to the flight, that was going to become a problem. This does not have that, obviously, because they remove the switches and they use these buttons. Nice thing about the button is you could use it as a pre-arm, press the button, flip your switch. Kind of a safety, especially if you walk and carry your radio around, which is kind of a dangerous habit. You could accidentally arm, and especially if you have arming set to 180, you can arm at any angle. You can arm in your hand upside down or on your backpack or on your head. So a little pre-arm is a good safety procedure. Really, all the switches feel like just any other switch would. These are also recessed, I think, a little bit more than the T8SG. It might be about the same, actually. You can see the position of the speaker, at least I believe it's the position of the speaker right up here. Let's go ahead and turn it on. Switch warning, and then you get the beep from the switch, from the beeper, excuse me. So it comes set up with four different profiles, and you could really use any of these. It doesn't matter. You know, you set up the mixers to do what you need for your switches and what your switches are supposed to do for you and how you have them set up on Betaflight for your quad. I know that's a lot of mumbo jumbo if you're just getting started out, but what you don't want to do is start deleting these models and start off fresh. If you want to start off with a new model, go down and create a new model. Don't delete one of these, because you could always refer back to these if you happen to need to know how to do something and it works in the way you want it to in one of these other models. So keep those as a reference, but you can create a new if you want to. So if you just want to select a new model, you just scroll to it, press and hold the roller bar, select that, and every time it gives you that. So now we see we have it on quad, but really this is just a look at the screen. Initially you may have noticed the light was blue, now it is green. I kind of like the color scheme of the light, not that that means anything as far as review purposes goes, but it has OpenTX on it. There are thousands of tutorials on YouTube and RC groups and all sorts of quad and drone and probably airplane places as well for everything you need to know about OpenTX and programming. The main thing in quads is we're using the switches and a mixer in order to get, the mixer is a page within OpenTX in order to get the switch to respond on the channel that we want it to respond for our Betaflight setup to fly our quads. As far as the sticks go, no, they're not the highest quality sticks. They feel very, very similar to what I found on this T8SG. You do note that my original T8SG, I added some neoprene foam around the sides for grip because I tend to hold with just 2 fingers. So I should have clarified that earlier, but this is how I tend to hold and fly. They have these cutouts or these indents or extrusions here that give you a little bit of grip. This does feel like traditional plastic. This isn't a soft touch on the backside. This has a different feel to it, a little bit of a soft touch. I actually wish this touch rolled around to the backside. I don't know if on video you can tell, but there is a little bit of a slight difference in look between the two halves, even if you look down here. So this has got some sort of softer finish to it. That it's not the softest of soft finishes that I felt, but it is softer than traditional plastic feel. It's pretty hard, stiff. Let me turn this off before I run my battery too far down. I've used a number of different radios. I find myself always going back to something smaller, but again, as I stated in the intro, that's not something I can dictate for you. Sometimes you have to just take a leap and have some faith that it's what you want based upon either your budget, how it looks in the form factor, and what you think you might want if you're getting started. Of course, if you're an experienced pilot, you kind of know. You've maybe tried on your friends' goggles and your friends' radios, and you have a feel for what you like. You're just looking for something different that might be coming new. Maybe you're looking for no stick or no switch in these positions. Maybe you're looking for a button. Maybe you're just looking for some additional soft touch. Maybe you want the metal roller bar. Maybe some feature set within here is what you're looking for. But if you do have any comments, questions, suggestions, otherwise, please let me know in the section down below. I appreciate your time, and thanks for watching.